America entered World War II completely unprepared for what awaited it. On December 7, 1941, when Japanese aircraft struck Pearl Harbor, the nation experienced a shock that would change it forever. But the attack revealed another, far more troubling truth. The United States was entering a global armored war with almost no tanks. Europe had already spent 2 years under the German boot. Wehrmacht panzers rolled through Poland, France, the Balkans, and North Africa. Germany had perfected the art of blitzkrieg, speed, coordination, armored divisions that shattered defenses in hours. And against that backdrop, American tanks looked like relics from another era. The light M2s and M3s could move quickly on roads, but in real combat their armor was pierced even by light anti-tank guns. America had no equivalent of the Panzer IV, no tank capable of sustained fighting, absorbing hits, supporting infantry, and keeping up with the pace of the European battlefield. The High Command saw the danger clearly. The United States was preparing to fight in a world where armor would decide the outcome of entire fronts. If America didn't create a new tank, reliable, modern, and above all mass-produced, it would enter the next battles permanently trying to catch up to Germany's industrial tempo. In January 1942, Washington hosted a meeting that few remember today. But it was there that a single sentence was spoken, one that would define America's entire wartime doctrine. An engineer from the Rock Island Arsenal delivered the line that flipped U.S. tank design on its head. "We don't need the strongest tank. We need a tank we can build by the thousands." It sounded almost heretical. At a time when Germany relied on technological superiority, the Americans chose a different path, winning not with superweapons but with sheer numbers, speed of production, and logistical power. This was the birth of the concept that would become legendary, the M4 Sherman. Designers received clear requirements. The new tank had to be simple to assemble, repairable without rare parts, adaptable to different engine types, easy to mass produce, fast and maneuverable enough, and most importantly, standardized across every factory in the country. America possessed its greatest weapon, industry, but it now had to learn to function as a single system. Factories that once made tractors, rail cars, refrigerators, or engines would, for the first time, become part of a unified wartime machine. The idea sparked heated debate. Some generals believed the U.S. was repeating France's 1940 mistakes, choosing quantity over quality. But advocates of mass production had a powerful argument. In a global war, victory goes not to the nation with the most advanced tank, but to the one that can field thousands, and replace losses as easily as cars rolling off a conveyor belt. The project was approved, and dozens of engineering teams, designers, and production groups began working on the most ambitious tank program in American history. Every bolt, every panel, every component of the new machine was designed so that a worker, who just yesterday might have assembled farm equipment, could build it. America was entering a race it could not afford to lose. What followed would be months of trials, experiments, and relentless work. But everyone involved understood one thing. If the United States failed to create this new tank, the war in Europe might become unwinnable. This was the beginning of the story that would lead to the creation of the tank that changed the course of World War II, a tank that wasn't the most powerful, but became the most important. Work on the new tank moved with the kind of intensity that exists only in wartime. American engineers understood. Every month of delay meant future lives lost on the battlefield, a postponed invasion of Europe, and another chance for Germany to strengthen its positions. But speed did not mean chaos. The United States was attempting the impossible, building a tank quickly, yet making it the backbone of an entire army, not a temporary stopgap. One of the key decisions was to use the hull of the previous model, the M3 Lee, but with an entirely new upper structure, a new turret, and a new main gun. It was a controversial yet pragmatic solution that shaved months off production. Engineers weren't cutting corners on quality. They were cutting time by reusing technologies that already worked. The turret had to be spacious, fully rotating, and armed with a 75mm gun capable of defeating most German vehicles at ranges up to 1,000 meters. It wasn't the best gun in the world, but it was versatile, effective against armor, fortifications, and as fire support for infantry. That versatility would later make the Sherman a favorite among many commanders. The second major debate centered on the engine. The U.S. produced all kinds of engines, aircraft, automotive, diesel, and engineers decided to adapt the tank to all viable options. This meant the Sherman could be built in numerous variants while keeping the same basic design. Factories could operate without pause. If one type of engine ran out, they could simply switch to another. Logistics became more complicated, but production sped up dramatically. By fall 1941, the first prototypes rolled out. During testing, the Sherman surprised many skeptics. It was genuinely fast. It could easily hit 24 to 25 miles per hour cross-country and go even faster on roads. In Europe, with its hills, villages, and narrow routes, speed meant maneuverability, one of the most important traits for an offensive army. Mechanics praised its serviceability. Access to the engine and suspension was so well designed that most repairs could be done in the field. A Sherman could be half disassembled within hours, a component replaced, and the tank returned to action the same day. Compared to this, German tanks looked like complex, temperamental machines requiring factory conditions for major repairs. But the new tank also had clear weaknesses. Its armor was thinner than that of the Panzer IV. Its gun fell behind the more advanced German 75mm weapons introduced later in the war. And most concerning of all, the internal ammunition storage made the tank vulnerable. If hit, the rounds could ignite and turn the vehicle into a deadly fire trap. Committees reported the issues. Engineers argued. Military leaders demanded solutions. But over every discussion, one question loomed. What mattered more, an ideal tank or a tank the U.S. could send to the front by the thousands? The answer was becoming more obvious by the day. Meanwhile, a massive industrial mobilization was underway. Ford, Chrysler, Fisher, Pressed Steel Car, dozens of companies reconfigured their assembly lines. Factories that once built tractors, train cars, or machinery were becoming places where fighting vehicles would be born. New presses were installed, workers were trained, supply routes were mapped out. At the same time, American tank crews were undergoing accelerated training. For many of them, this was their first ever encounter with tanks. They familiarized themselves with the Sherman, its controls, speed, gun, internal systems. These men would soon become the first crews to take the Sherman into combat in North Africa. When the Commission officially approved the new model in February 1942 under the name M4 Sherman, the country already had the foundation for the largest tank production program in U.S. history. All that remained was to switch on the assembly lines and never turn them off. Thus began the industrial race that would shape the outcome of future battles. But how would the Sherman perform in real combat? Could it withstand German armor? And would the bet on mass production prove itself on the brutal stage of war? The answers would come soon, amid the fire, dust, and steel of the desert. The first Shermans entered combat in North Africa in the fall of 1942 during Operation Torch. For the United States, it was not only a battlefield test, but a chance to learn whether the new machine could withstand its first encounter with the German Panzerwaffe, the most experienced armored force in Europe. Commanders were anxious, engineers waited for reports, and the crews, many of whom a year earlier had never imagined they'd be on the other side of the world, felt for the first time the roar of a 30-ton machine beneath them. And the first battles delivered an important conclusion. The Sherman wasn't perfect, but it worked. It was faster than the Panzer III, more maneuverable than many German models, and its gun could reliably knock out enemy vehicles at medium ranges. Most importantly, it broke down less often than German tanks, and it could be repaired right there in the desert. But something else became clear just as quickly. Against fortified positions and later German variants, the Sherman struggled. German 75mm KWK-40 guns could penetrate its armor from long distances, and the Sherman sometimes erupted in flames after the first hit. Crews gave it a harsh nickname, Ronson, after the lighter that always lights on the first try. The U.S. command responded fast. Factories modified the ammunition storage design, introducing wet stowage, shells placed in containers surrounded by water. This change reduced the chance of fire by more than half. For an army where every life mattered, it was a major breakthrough. Meanwhile, production kept climbing. By mid-1943, America was rolling out dozens of Shermans every day, sending them to North Africa, the Middle East, and soon, to Italy. Tank crews grew to love the machine for one thing: it forgave mistakes. The Sherman started easily, handled rough terrain confidently, rarely broke down, and required no delicate tuning. If something did fail, mechanics could fix it in hours, not days as was common in German units. But the real test would come in Normandy. On June 6, 1944, the Sherman was the backbone of American armored forces, pushing inland from the landing zones into the narrow French roads and hedgerows. And here, for the first time, it faced heavy German armor. Late series Panzer IVs, Panthers, and Tigers, better protected, armed with superior guns, and extremely dangerous. The comparison wasn't in the Sherman's favor. In a one-on-one duel, it often lost. But war was not about duels. The US had bet on something else entirely, that Germany simply couldn't build heavy tanks at the pace America could build Shermans, and that bet was correct. While Germany produced a few hundred Panthers and Tigers in 1944, the United States was producing 2,000 Shermans every month. While German tanks needed complex maintenance, a Sherman could pull into a field repair point and be back in action in 2 hours. The American strategy was clear: win not with a single tank, but with a system. The Sherman fought alongside aviation, artillery, engineers, and reconnaissance. It was a component in a vast war machine where every part worked toward victory. During the Battle of the Bulge in the winter of 1944 to 1945, this strategy became unmistakable. Shermans operated in bitter cold, deep snow, and extremely tight terrain. Despite heavy early losses, the U.S. Army halted the German advance and then counterattacked. The Sherman didn't always win head-on encounters, but it helped win the war. By spring 1945, these tanks were standing at Germany's doorstep. They had crossed France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and reached the Rhine. Their presence became a symbol of inevitability. America was coming, and nothing would stop it. When the war ended, historians summed it up clearly. The Sherman wasn't the best tank. Germany had more powerful machines, but no nation could do what America had done: build 50,000 tanks, create a massive supply system, train tens of thousands of crews, and keep vehicles running on every mile of the front. The Sherman became the symbol of the American way: simplicity, reliability, mass production, speed. It didn't win the war by being the strongest. It won by being the tank America could depend on, always, everywhere, and in any number. And when 1945 finally brought an end to World War II, one truth stood out. The Sherman was the tank that propelled America to victory. Not the most powerful, but the most important.